Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second day of Shift Money 2019. I hope you had a great first day yesterday. I want to personally thank Yvonne for setting this thing up to start at 11 a.m.,
Yes, sir.
meaning that you have a little bit of time to, drink coffee, get yourself together. Today, we're kicking things off with an interesting panel. I believe it's a topic that's of interest to everybody here, which is the utility in crypto. I've got two amazing guests here, Meg Nakamura from Apto Payments, Cyril Mathew from Coinbase. I'm Stan from Mashable. I'd like to start things with my guest maybe introducing yourselves, say a little bit about what you do, and then we can kick off the chat. So Meg, want to go first?
Sure. Good morning. Thank you everyone for coming. My name's Meg. I'm one of the co-founders of Apto Payments. We partner with Visa and MasterCard, and we help companies like Coinbase issue cards in the US as well as in Europe. Our goal is to achieve global issuance and help global companies like Coinbase issue cards in all markets through one partnership.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Cyril. I lead international business development for Coinbase based in London. So obviously partnered with Apto to issue the Coinbase Card, running a number of initiatives that help us expand. And one of my action items for today is to get a new profile photo, because that's a pretty weak one. That was actually my badge photo at work. So it tells us I need to do some updates there. So bear with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So I think we have the perfect conversation starter for today, and that is the Coinbase Card. I believe it launched in June, and just last week it launched in Croatia. It is not very often that we get a global product launching in Croatia so fast after its introduction. And I'd like Cyril to tell us a little bit more about the card and why it's important.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when you think about cards, and I think what we were proud of is we knew that a lot of our users were looking to find ways to either liquidate their cryptocurrency, which Coinbase is a popular destination for, and or spend it in real time. And I think the team at Apto has done a lot of research at previous programs that they shared with us, and we were proud to launch that card initially in London out of the UK, and then now expanded, I'm proud to say, this week into Croatia and most of the EU markets as well. The reason we did it again is I think when you talk about the steps when you're trading cryptocurrency and want to get it out, even on Coinbase where we feel it's pretty simple, it takes 4 or 5 steps to add your bank account, to verify your identity, and then withdraw cash. And now with a click or a tap, you can actually spend that anywhere you'd like, or you can even go to an ATM and pull cash out. So we were really excited for it. I think through this panel we'll share some more numbers, but we do see lots of usage from the launch.
One thing about these cryptocurrency cards is that during the first big cryptocurrency boom in 2017, I've seen a lot of these cards come up, and but they kind of disappeared, or the companies behind them pivoted. But now with a company like Apto, which is doing the behind-the-scenes work, working with regulators, overcoming technical issues and helping businesses launch these cards, I believe that they're here to stay. And so maybe you can comment on that.
Sure. I think when we first started working together in Europe, it was right after the Wavecrest debacle. And so if folks remember, there were a handful of cards in the European market issued out of Gibraltar, and all of those cards were taken off the shelves. And we don't know why exactly, it's not well known, but all we could do is really make sure that we were going through the front door and talking with all of the key partners to make sure that we were doing this in the most buttoned up way. We did not want to pull a fast one. We did not want to do anything tricky. And I think that good faith effort really went a long way.
Thank you. Maybe I want to go back to Coinbase a little bit. You guys had an extremely busy year or two, launched a bunch of new products. You rebranded GDAX as Coinbase Pro, had a lot of new products for institutional investors. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the traction you're seeing for these new products?
Yep, happy to. Yeah, I think there's a whole portfolio of products now, which makes it exciting. At the same time, forcing us to try to bring focus to the portfolio as well. At the highest level, I think Coinbase's mission is to be the most trusted and easiest to use in the crypto economy. And so we use that principle across any of the products that we offer. The way I like to usually phrase it is, we have our core offerings. We have Coinbase Consumer, which is in the US akin to a brokerage like a Charles Schwab, where that's where the 30 million plus users for Coinbase globally have signed up. Just to easy, simple to use, trade assets either on your mobile app or on web. Then you have, as Stan mentioned, what was formerly called GDAX Coinbase Pro, which is the exchange where actually all the trades are happening. You see very liquid order books, especially in USD, sterling, et cetera. And not only retail clients, but lots of institutional clients have come there. And then the third piece, I think, was part of our core offering, which we've been really excited to see grow, is Coinbase Custody, where now we're able to safely secure and cold storage assets for all our retail and institutional investors. And I believe by assets under management, now the largest custodian in the world, over 7 billion assets under management. And those are kind of the core offerings. When you look underneath, I think really exciting products that we're really putting emphasis into, for example, Coinbase Commerce, the ability to accept payments online, which is free, easy to use plugin that you can get online. Coinbase Earn, which was an acquisition that we made of earn.com, where we've done first of its kinds campaigns, for example, with Stellar Lumen and the projects there, that you take some tutorials online, you learn about crypto, and you get rewarded for it. You actually can earn Stellar, and we think it's a great platform that a lot of projects are now coming to us about how to educate people in crypto and at the same time earn crypto, which is, as we talk about the utility phase, really great. And of course, there's a number of other emerging products. We have the non-custodial Coinbase wallet. We have the debit card now that we're also excited about.
So how do these products kind of position themselves with regards to some of your competitors? I get the feeling that, some of the competition is doing, things fast and dirty, and whereas Coinbase is kind of trying to do things slowly and steady.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the...
Not slowly, come
yeah.
on.
That's the other part? Okay.
As a business development person at Coinbase, sometimes it could be, I came from Uber where we my previous role was at Uber where we moved pretty aggressively. In Coinbase, sometimes as a business development person, I say I can get frustrated because you're moving a little bit slower than you would like. But in the end, I realize it's what we feel is a longer term competitive advantage in terms of we feel it's very important to embrace regulation, that we have clear regulatory frameworks for any market that we operate in. And sometimes that does mean moving a little slower and maybe ceding some market share. But on the exchange side, there's lots of competitors, there's larger competitors, but I think the approach that we take is we're going to understand the regulatory regime, we're going to have established banking partnerships, and then we move forward accordingly. But yeah, I think competitors across the spectrum on custody, there's also great competitors like the Anchorages, Bison Trails, et cetera. But I think we feel as long as we follow that approach longer term, it should mean success.
I mean, selfishly for us, the reputation and the brand value of Coinbase is hugely valuable to us, and we're so proud to get to work with Coinbase as our first crypto debit card. So,
it's the first one? I didn't know that.
For us, it goes a long way,
right.
So we appreciate it.
Okay, back to utility in crypto. So payments are one thing, and a debit card is one thing, but there's a lot of talk about what's the next big thing for crypto. And I remember the ICO boom in 2017. That was one of the killer apps, but it kind of died down due to regulatory scrutiny. And now in the last year or so, we're seeing a lot of talk about decentralized finance, DeFi, which gives people access to more complex financial products, often without a custodian or sometimes in a fully decentralized way. And many people think that this is the future of crypto, or at least one part of that future, a big part. So maybe you can comment a little bit about that, explain what DeFi is, who wants it, Cyril, Meg.
Sure, I can take a start there. Yeah, I mean, we've been really excited. I think 12 months ago, I like to say there wasn't, or maybe it was 18 months ago, no even mention of decentralized finance, and now we see a lot of these protocols and projects really spinning up that Coinbase is particularly excited about, and especially when I look at utility, I think I will give one more plug for the card. A lot of people at Coinbase, we talk about bridging the gap from Finance 1.0 to Finance 2.0, which is crypto utility where everyone's using it. And we do feel like the card is almost like a 1.5, where sure it's on Visa rails, but it's a great way for you to really utilize and spend crypto. Moving on, I think some of the things we're excited about is decentralized finance, and especially the use of stable coins within this, which we feel has been a huge leverage in terms of these protocols taking off. You see DAI being used, you see USDC being used. So what is decentralized finance? It's essentially you take out this layer of the central bank, and you have one of the projects that we really are admiring is Compound, where you have this protocol that has algorithmically setting the lending and borrow rates based on supply and demand. And if you go there today, I believe, I forget what the latest interest rate is on USDC. I think it's around 4 or 5%. It's hovered between 2 and 7%, and that's really exciting, where people who are not banked now have access to lending. So there's a number of projects, Dharma, Compound, Uniswap, that we see that are really taking off. And when you talk about utility, this is literally an everyday use case that people need.
Yeah, just my 2 cents. I feel as though a bunch of people ask, when are consumers really going to use crypto for day-to-day payments? And despite the card and all of the headway, all of the milestones we've achieved, we're still not yet at like a top-of-wallet use case. And I think a lot of these DeFi solutions will help us get there. I think to the extent it's always hard to provide that 10x better user experience with paying with crypto now, we're on the right road to potentially exploring some of these other solutions.
Yeah, I want to hear your opinion. I've seen a lot of opposing voices saying that DeFi is immature, that it's not serious enough, and that people shouldn't use it. But I believe that, it looks to me that it could just be the early days, and that it's something that has room to grow. So how do you feel about that? Is it obviously you probably believe that it's going to get bigger and better and more secure and more decentralized along the way?
Yeah, I would say I 100% agree it's early days, and I always put my disclaimer out. I don't give investment advice in terms of actually putting your money into it, but I do think these are some of those promising developments. Now, I think you have to always look at where they're at in the evolution. So some of these protocols, and one of our product managers named Namil Dalal, he writes a blog called, I believe the title is Centralized First. Maybe could follow up with that. But he talks about, to get to decentralization, a lot of times you have to start centralized a bit in terms of what some of these protocols are doing, because decision making is a little bit easier there. You can actually set some of the initial algorithms and those sorts of things with a central team, but then you slowly move to decentralization. Can some of these protocols handle large scale right now? Probably not, I think. And are these rates sustainable over the long term? Probably not, I say. But I think the fact that you have the ability, I think now without the central player like a bank, is interesting. And I do think if they tread carefully, you will see scale over time.
Specifically in the US, with respect to just the business of lending in these DeFi sorts of manners, I think the utility of spending crypto is really tough. The value proposition of a taxable event at every moment you're liquidating crypto is very prohibitive in terms of providing growth and usability. And so the fact that these companies like Compound and others are working really hard to lend against crypto and provide new solutions is really helpful for the ecosystem.
Thank you. You mentioned stable coins. I don't know if everybody here is familiar with the term. Basically, it's a cryptocurrency whose value is pegged to real life assets such as the dollar. And obviously Coinbase has its own cryptocurrency, which is the USDC, but I just have to touch on Libra, which I believe everybody here has heard about. It's been a talk of the town for the last 6 months. It's a project by Facebook and a lot of partners, including Coinbase, to launch a type of stable coin. And it has received immense regulatory pressure, both from the US regulators, from bankers, heads of state, all over the place, with some of them calling for an outright ban of the entire thing. So how do you think that will reflect on both USDC and stable coins? Are you going to outlaw the entire thing, or is it going to will issuers of stable coins be able to find some sort of way to see even with the regulators?
So I think everybody agrees that Libra, the fact that it's brought so much attention to the ecosystem, is a good thing. It's a positive. It's a net win for the crypto community generally. My personal opinion, the challenge of Facebook leading the effort has been, as you mentioned, difficult. And in the US particularly, whether it's Zuckerberg testifying or David Marcus trying to validate a roadmap for launch, it seems like it's stumbling a little bit, right? And we very much hope that they're able to figure out a path to succeed. It's just, it's seemingly tough right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add on. I think disclaimer is Coinbase is a member of the Libra Association, which has stood up last month. I would echo what Meg says. Brian Armstrong, our CEO, you can follow him on Twitter. He loves some of these moments. I think when President Trump in the U.S. first tweeted about cryptocurrency, I think it was following the Libra announcements, and Brian would say achievement unlocked, because he's just waiting for a sitting president to actually talk about cryptocurrency. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, it's just the fact that they're discussing it. So I think we echo that Libra's forced these conversations that people otherwise didn't know. Definitely larger regulators, governments are not aware of what a stable coin is, how it can work. So I think net, that's great. And I think Coinbase's stance is, we have a stable coin that we've issued in partnership with Circle called USDC through the Center Consortium. We also list DAI on our platform because we're really big fans of what that coin does. And similarly, we think as Coinbase has been able to bring crypto to tens of millions, the Libra project has ambitions and potentially the scope to bring crypto to hundreds of millions. So generally something that is following, regulation and embracing, and that's legal, we're going to support big projects like that, and that's kind of our stance on it. I would agree on the headwinds that they're facing right now. I think just because of, certain politics, et cetera, they do seem
more about Facebook than Libra. Right?
Yeah, I think there's that element where in the U.S. especially, there's some unassociated anger against Facebook for unassociated to Libra that they'll face. But we generally feel having these conversations is a great thing for the industry.
To follow up on that, both of you work a lot with the regulators. You know what happens behind the scenes. And for the longest time in the history of crypto, there was this fear that regulators are just going to shut the whole thing down, say like Bitcoin is illegal, and that's the end of that. It hasn't happened. We've seen some regulatory pressure on Libra, but still, it looks to me from the outside, looking from the outside, and I hope you can comment on that regulators are kind of coming to terms in maturing in a way that they can now set rules that are sane and maybe set the path for crypto to grow. Am I right to that assessment that regulators have grown with the space, that they understand crypto better now?
I can start on that one. So when we founded the company in 2014, we really raised money on this vision that we would be the first US Bitcoin debit card in partnership with Coinbase. And I think you can all empathize with the fact that it was an extremely uphill battle. Regulators didn't know about it, they weren't really smart about it, the bankers were even worse, and it was just a real challenge. And now, fast forward 5 years later, I would say that the environment has changed tremendously. I think you can travel around the world, and to be fair to regulators, I think there are a lot of smart regulators out there who have done a deep dive into crypto, who really, really understand it. And I think the fact that they've come up to speed in the last, call it 3 years, I think is a real testament to what the technology has to offer. And the regulators are putting their best people on it to get smart about it. So I think that's been a tremendous change.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think I do not lead our regulatory conversations. I do the funner things like working with Apto, but I would say it's a journey, and a journey that we've seen evolve a lot recently. I'm particularly proud of being, leading our European efforts. Of the regulators in Europe seem to even be more forward. For example, the FCA in the UK calls our team in a lot just to discuss how should we look at stable coins, how are your users using it, etc. Not that they're always taking recommendations, but there is an open dialogue there. And so I would agree with your statement that they're generally, I think, further along in that evolution and journey.
I think this is probably obvious too for most, but having worked with banks and particularly KYC, AML programs in the past prior to this business, I think one of the things that Coinbase did tremendously well is really leverage all of the best tools to have better compliance programs. And so the fact that newer crypto companies or newer fintech companies were outperforming legacy banks on these types of risk and controls, I think resonated and ultimately won over the regulators. So I think that's been tremendously helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Maybe to go back on topic of utility, so there are obviously payments, remittances, there's decentralized finance, loans, derivatives, all these things. Is there anything else that you see, maybe in another killer app in the future of crypto, or does it all have to come together maybe to create, for crypto space to go to the next step, so to speak?
Why don't you start?
All right. Yeah, it's a good question. I think, everyday utility, we're still not there yet. So I think that's the first answer I would say. I think the things that we've touched on even in this discussion, you talk about savings and lending, you talk about spending on your card, you talk about just secure places to keep your assets. These are all things that you can do in traditional finance today. And I think the further along in evolution that we can do those things at scale, and it can continue to be trusted, to your point about if the DeFi scales, you start to see more everyday utility. I think personally, I'm most excited. I think it's similar to what Libra's ambition is. It's what we want to do with the USD coin, is to see kind of these global cross-border payments and remittances solved. I mean, there's a lot of great companies doing that today. I think with crypto, you have a chance to even do that at a larger scale, faster settlements, and much cheaper. And we're not there yet, but I think there's a lot of exciting developments that I personally follow.
So I confess I'm not super close to it, but I had the great fortune of sharing a car ride from the airport to the hotel with Tech from Binance, and I got to pick his brain over the 20-minute journey. And I guess as an outsider, my perception is that there are a ton of developers who are really passionate about the space and are really trying to move things forward, but there's so many competing interests, and maybe there's some discrepancy on like the littlest detail or some portion of what they're building. And so I just wish the community would come together a little bit more to do things together as opposed to in their own little silos. Hopefully some of these developers can get through and get over the hump on scale and usability and get stuff to market.
Awesome. I think we have a little bit over 5 minutes left. I would like to maybe open the space for any questions you may have. You'll get a mic. Do I see any hands? Oh, there's a hand over there.
Thank you very much. Nice to have you on stage. And one question for Cyril. What is your view on on-demand liquidity from Ripple and that way of using cryptocurrency for exchanging and remittance? And do you see Coinbase in one way partnering with? No, okay, but because you can get some volume from them because they have MoneyGram and some others, 24 others ODL partners. Do you see new future in that? Exchange Coinbase.
Yeah. Do you work for Ripple? Or are you trying to do a partnership? No, I've actually been following that, particularly just because I mentioned payments and remittances. I think they've got a lot of traction. You mentioned MoneyGram specifically, and even though we don't have a direct partnership today, we recently announced the addition of XRP to our UK entity. So now UK users of Coinbase can now trade XRP. So what we find is a lot of the ODL clients are coming to Coinbase for the liquidity on one end or the other, if the one end of the payment is in the US or in the UK. And so now XRP is listed in the US, Euro, and Sterling for us. So inorganically or organically, we're seeing a lot of that demand. Now, whether we do something more formal, can't comment on that yet, but I think it's an interesting opportunity. And I do love that they're pushing this use case, and MoneyGram in particular. I think they share investors, et cetera. We've seen some of the case studies that have come out over the last weeks where they're getting traction. So answer to that is I think maybe we could do something more formal, but organically we're already seeing that liquidity happening on a lot of our exchange entities.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hands? Do I see anything? Nobody? Maybe
It's early.
It's early.
Still hungover.
Maybe I can ask another final question. Maybe you guys remember something while we talk about this. You kind of mentioned this about in your last thing that you said is about these little differences between developers. And one thing I've noticed in the crypto space is that this endless bickering between BTC, ETH, between maximalists and people who think that everything goes. I don't know. It seems to me personally that's kind of detrimental to the space. It makes me not want to follow Twitter and social media because it seems to me that it's just a lot of arguing going on. And how do you feel about that? I know it's not directly tied to your business, but it is a thing that is happening. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, Meg touched on it. I think us three are probably in alignment that that's not generally great for the ecosystem. I think, as I mentioned earlier with the stablecoin example, where we want to support any project that we think can bring adoption to more people. I would personally love to see projects working closer together, and I think that's good for the ecosystem. So, I think our stance is whenever we see an interesting project, even if it's a little bit competitive to an offering that we have, we're going to support it in terms of trying to get scale. And I think if in order for this industry to see scale, some of the other projects I'd love to see happening in crypto is, for example, identity management on the blockchain. But if you keep having kind of these fierce debates on forks, some of them are good, by the way. I think we do need to still evaluate how we get more performance on certain chains, et cetera. So I think there are good discussions as long as it doesn't turn into vitriol, et cetera, is what I would say.
Yeah, so debate is one thing, and blocking one another on Twitter, that's another thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have any more questions before we wrap up? All right, I guess it is early. I think we can wrap up. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
To
Thanks,
the
everyone.
panel. Hope you had a good time.